Not even an agenda. I'll call this to order. All right, call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody to the council meeting this morning. Contrary to everybody else's opinion, this is a meeting of council, not a meeting of fools on this day. And that'll be the last we speak about April 1st. Okay, fine. Before we start, if everybody, if we could rise and we'll take a moment of reflection, please. First, I'm going to ask, is there any declaration of interest in today's meeting? Part of the agenda? Seeing none, if it does arise, can be declared at any time, of course. Ms. Noble, for everybody that is going to be joining us on online, can you give a bit of a description on how they can interact with us, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Eccles, at any point, if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter the ID for this meeting, which is 891-5626-2480. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance, please send a chat message to West Grey Communications and I will attempt to assist you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Continuing on with the agenda. I don't believe we have any delegations today that I'm aware of yet. Public meetings. We do have one public meeting this morning, and we'll open that. It's dealing with building fees. So I will declare that the public meeting is open. Ms. Noble, do I need you to go through this again for the public meeting, for the record? I think that was 30 seconds ago. We should be okay. All right, thank you. A few announcements from myself on procedure. Purpose of the public meeting is to obtain public comments on the proposed changes to the municipality of West Grey's existing building permit fees and is being held pursuant to Section 7-6 of the Building Code 1992. Notice of this public meeting was provided pursuant to Clause 7-6A of the Building Code 1992 and Clauses 1.9.1.2 B and C of the Division C of the Ontario Building Code. Please note that anyone wishing to provide comments in support or opposition to the proposed building permit fees must first provide their name and the name of the municipality in which they reside. And I think that's it for my official announcements. Any other ones that we need to do? So we'll open the public meeting, and our Director of Community Development Services is CBO, Mr. Shipwreck. I'll turn it over to you to lead us through this portion of it. Carl?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. The Building Code Act requires us to hold a public meeting every time we want to amend our building permit fees. Our building permit fees are done through the fees and charges bylaw, but they are regulated through the Building Code Act. Our building permit fees are required to be generally reflective of the cost of doing the work. There is some allowance in there to collect a little bit additional fees over what's the proposed budget to collect, and those would be held in a reserve if we receive any additional fees over and above what it costs to run the department for that year. Prior to my starting here in 2019, we did have a fairly healthy reserve, so we haven't been in a position that we needed to increase our fees since 2016. And that for my time here since 2019, we haven't been in a position that we were required to increase those fees, partially due to the reserves, but partially also due to increased revenue through large building projects and large higher than above building permit, higher than expected building permit fees. So our proposed, we included in the report there what our revenues and expenses have been since 2020, including 2024, and our current reserve balance is approximately $235,000, and that's estimated as the year-end audit has not been completed to date, but that is the expected amount. So as I went through the process, I did a comparison, and that comparison to other municipalities in the area was included as part of the report for all the fees. Specifically, I focused in on single-family dwellings and the cost for that, and provided a comparison of an average 1,500 square foot house with a 500 square foot garage and 500 square feet of deck. And I also included in these fees would be plumbing fees. We don't specifically charge anything in addition to a single-family dwelling for plumbing specifically, but some municipalities do. And in those municipalities, I did add those plumbing fees into what those expected costs would be. And as you can see, fortunately, the chart here from the in the agenda package is a little bit wonky. Something happened in the translation there, but I did compare it to 13 municipalities. Currently, our current fees are at the bottom. We're well below the lowest, with $2,000 for that average house, with the highest being Hanover at approximately $7,000. My proposal for the new fees would put us third from the bottom at an average of $3,000 per house, whereas most municipalities, you can see by that chart, would still be above that. But I believe the fees that I'm proposing will adequately fund the department, at least for a few years, along with the expected revenue from building permits. So then I did include a chart that showed what our existing fees were for everything and what the proposed fees would be. Some of the major changes that we were looking at, one of the items on there is an administrative fee. So through the Building Code Act, we can charge what is called an administrative fee for building without a permit. So somebody builds a shed or something and there's an enforcement, but that fee is required, again, to be reflective of the cost of enforcement. So not necessarily specific to that one item, but as a overall a budget. So we have a budget that we sort of estimate on how much our legal fees and staff time are going to be dealing with those building without a permits. And that fee is required to be reflective of what that total cost was. It's not supposed to be punitive. Like, we can't charge $20,000 every time somebody builds without a permit, just because that would be, people may not build without a permit if they knew they had to pay $20,000 every time. But that's not what we're allowed to do. That's a court decision, and that's a court process that they have to go through to determine whether they're guilty or not guilty. In this case, we're just the cost for an administrative fee. And I believe the current fee was a little bit high, or the budget for what we were charging was a little bit higher than probably what was needed. So our current fee is worded as 2 times the permit fee. I think the current bylaw had a little bit of a misunderstanding where it's 2 times. If somebody built without a permit, we're supposed to charge them 2 times the fee, but that included the fee to actually. So if somebody built without a permit, their building permit fee was $150 to build that deck. That we were charging them $300. $150 of it is the administrative fee, but $150 is actually their permit fee. So I've modified that a little bit. And then we would only be charging them 50% of their permit fee, but to a minimum of $250. So our current minimum is $500, but for a small project where, like I said, where somebody's building a deck or building a shed without a permit, $500 was likely too high for that. And again, understanding that the higher the cost is, the more likely they would be to not build without a permit, but that's not the intent of the fine. So it would be 50% of the building permit fee is the proposed, with a minimum of $250. So other than that, our base fee is currently $150. We're proposing to change that to $250. We did an analysis of, what the base costs, things like software, not including staff time, before we even receive a permit, just the costs that are involved. And it's over $100 per permit is what we're paying for admin and things like our software, right? Our current building code software, our price is approximately $100 per permit is what it averages out to. Now you can argue that, the more expensive permits should pay more and the less expensive permits pay less. But our base fee before we even start is around $100. So, and then I'd say the balance, our building permit fee should cover about 50% would cover the plans review and the other 50% would be for the inspections. So we're looking at modifying that base fee from $150 to $250. Again, we talked about the new fee for residential. Again, the increase, if you look at it percentage wise from 50 cents to 75% or 75 cents per square foot is quite high when we're looking at it on a percentage basis. But as we've talked about before, we haven't had an increase since 2016 because we didn't need one. And we are still at even at 75 cents per square foot, we are still well below most municipalities in the area. Agricultural, we are looking at increasing from 25 cents to 35 cents. We find with agricultural, we get some very large buildings and the difference in work and review process between agricultural buildings and what we consider accessory buildings, like a garage on a residential property, is almost no different. But our current price for an accessory building is 40 cents a square foot, but we're only charging agricultural buildings 25 cents. I think the intent there was that agricultural buildings are usually larger. So you're collecting a similar fee for a larger building. My proposal is to increase the fee for that first 10,000 square feet, but on the very large buildings, we would decrease that price so that because after a certain point, the amount of work involved on a larger building it's not a direct line ratio between the amount of work and the size of the building, especially when it comes to plans review. Again, industrial commercial, we charge per value of construction. Currently it's at $10 and we're looking at moving it to 12. And again, if looking at the comparison chart, 12 is very reflective of most municipalities and what they charge. We do have a reduced fee for tents below our base because there's only a requirement for one inspection. All other inspections will require at least 2 inspections, but a tent only requires 1. So we've allowed for a reduced fee for a tent. And we consider most of those tents would be like special occasion tents where somebody's having a wedding on their property or a special, an event of some kind that just to be a one-off on a tent and we only, like I said, we only require 1 inspection. Septic systems, we did change from 500 from our base fee to 600. A class 5 is a little bit less work that we be required from a class 4. So we did reduce that fee from 500 to 400. But our basic septic system, which is probably 90% of the systems we see, is a class 4, and that would go from $500 to $600. Our class 2s, which we call gray water systems, the amount of work involved between a class 2 and a class 4 is exactly the same. The amount of review and the amount of inspections is the same. So that fee should be the same as a private class 4. And we maybe get 1 or 2 of those a year. There's not a lot. So that's basic. That's the extent of my review there, my report. So if I have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Careful what you ask for, Carl, because here comes Councillor Hutchison. Doug, please.
Yes, thank you, Director, for the report. Just curious about the chart under the changes over the year from 220 to 224. So under revenues, Obviously, gone through a pandemic, so it went from 435,000, then up to 600, and then back down again, and then back up to 694. I'm curious about the expenses part, though. It went from 341, and each year it's increased by 50 to 100,000. So now it was 220, was 341, and now it's up for 684. Can you explain what the big difference is in the expenses in overall based on that chart?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So most of that would be staffing. So in 2020, I don't know, we didn't have a full-time admin in 2020. So it's just a change in how we were allocating some of that staff cost plus the cost of living increases. Again, we've had some fairly significant increases in our software. Cloud permit software price has gone up quite a bit, and wages probably would be the majority of that.
So from 220 to 224, so then have we increased staff number, and how does that work with Chatsworth being involved there?
Yeah, we've definitely increased staff numbers. We currently, as council's aware, we currently have some staff that's part-time, some that's full-time, but yeah, we do have at least one additional staff member, probably 1.5 since 2020. And Chatsworth, their fees are, or we collect a percentage of their fees. So if their fees go up, we collect more money. If they go down, we collect less money. And I've been working with the CIO in Chatsworth to look at their revenue as well. We did a fee increase last year in Chatsworth, very similar to what we're proposing here.
Anyone else? I'm going to go to Jeffrey first, Tom. Councillor Shea.
Yeah, thanks for this. Just a couple of clarifications around the administration fee. You said it used to say double, but that was sort of a mistake because it was actually, there's the administration fee plus the permit fee. So now you said the new administration fee is 50%, but they would also be paying the permit fee as well. Okay. And this is only allowed to be done on a cost recovery basis. And yet Hanover's fees, like for a typical house, are more than double what ours will be. Do they run a much less efficient shop, or what, how does that, do you have any insight into that?
I don't know. I can't speak specifically for Hanover, but in general, municipalities like Hanover, Chatsworth to a certain extent, if they had to run their own building department, would be required, because they're a smaller municipality with a lot fewer building permits, would have to run a rate per permit a lot higher to cover that one staff member. So depending on, I'm not sure how they allocate. I know they have 2 staff in Hanover, but I'm not sure how they allocate the director's salary, because I know he does more than just building. So again, it's a lot. Sometimes it's an accounting thing, but yeah, they do have quite a few less, like probably 20% of the number of permits we have, maybe a little bit less than that. So to allocate the price per permit to get enough value, they would have to, and they don't get, I mean, they get the odd commercial, but most of their stuff is residential. They would have no agricultural or no rural projects, right?
And does the department's cost, that would include overall, like some support costs from the municipality generally, like the cost of the building, the cost of support staff, like that's all sort of factored in?
You do it as a percentage.
Yeah, so we take the building costs and we do it based on the square footage of the building that's occupied by the building department, and apply that percentage for phones and hydro and heat and that type of thing. Yes, there's a bit of staff time for payroll processing, accounts payable, but just a minimal amount.
Deputy Mayor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. 'Cause hopefully you can hear me. So just so I'm clear, Chatsworth is basically on a user base, if you will, or an application? Like, do they, like when they do a request, and that's when obviously the fee kicks in, or do they cover any base, if you will? I know it's all revenue driven, but I'm just trying to understand if they don't do any, say, development at all, you know, for 4 months, we've still got employees there. So I'm just trying to figure that part out.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, so they pay 50% of their building permit revenue comes to to West Gray. So that covers just staff time. The other 50% of their fees they cover their software, they have an admin person in Chatsworth that's covered under that. They cover vehicle, gas, those types of things that are all the admin stuff in Chatsworth is all covered under that fee. So the 50% that we collect only pays for West Gray staff to perform plans review and inspections. Everything else comes out of the Chatsworth 50%.
Okay, thanks, Director. So I guess in essence, though, if we have, just say they have a downturn and they're not doing anything for a quarter, we have all the staff here, if you will, and there's no activity. Again, it's all revenue based, I think, you know, obviously, but how's the cost recovery on something like that if they're less than us? If we're only billing based on the applications, because obviously people have still earning income somehow. So
Yes.
no revenue, how do we pay them? Or they pay them?
Yeah, so that's the intent of the reserves, is that if for whatever reason you did have a year where you had lower than expected revenue, that those reserves would kick in to cover their balance, and Chatsworth would have a reserve, as well as you can see, West Gray has a reserve as well. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I mean, you never know with the economy and where things could go. But yeah, if we look at historically, even looked at building permit revenue for Chatsworth and West Gray over a 20-year trend, it's pretty level. There's not a huge peak and valley. I mean, last year we saw a fairly high peak because we had a very large, well, 2 very large projects in the municipality that are a lot of work, but they're also large permit fees. And then obviously in 2021 with the boom in residential construction in 2021, we saw a pretty substantial increase. But even over those years, looking at Chatsworth, even in the 2021, like they're mostly agricultural driven and mostly small residential projects. They don't get a lot of new residential or large commercial stuff. So their permit fees are pretty steady. They don't go up or down a lot. But yeah, with potential for the economy, you never know where that's going. But and then any difference would be covered through a reserve.
Okay, thank you, Director. And so I'm just trying to get so I can see we went into our reserves, which is the West Gray portion. I guess they are still making their portion or their contribution the same, and, you know, proportionally based on the services required. I got that, but they are doing the same, or because basically I look at it, employees here. So regardless, is a full-time employee, we're only invoicing the amount of work that was performed there. But anybody has a downturn, the wage still has to be covered somewhere. And if they're on a downturn, that's where I think their reserve should kick in towards that pie. Is that a simple way to put it? Thank you.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. And I like it. That hasn't had to happen. They have been within a few $1,000s of their budgeted amount every year. Even when we're basing it on permit fees, that really, if there was a situation where there was a drastic downturn, then that would definitely be something we would discuss with Chatsworth. And I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be amenable to that discussion. We've had those discussions before, but our current contract does specifically speak to a percentage of the building permit fees.
So like what minimums though to cost recovery?
Yeah, we don't
Somehow or
have,
other.
that is not in our current contract.
Anything else? I'm gonna go to Ashley. Is there anybody online, Ashley? For public comment? All right. Very good. I don't think there's anything else. Carl? This is, we said it's a public meeting and going forward, none of these are put in place. Get down to number 4, do you? Okay. If that's all for questions and whatnot, then council, we should have or be giving direction or decision on this. My understanding is we can make a motion to incorporate this because it will be done by bylaw in our fees and charges. Correct on that, Carl? So we need to be able to give a motion to give direction for council for staff to prepare the bylaw. Any timing when you think that might be coming forward? June sometime?
Through Miracles, the recommendation has the fees taking effect on June 1st. So the bylaw will likely be brought forward before that, but the effective date would be June 1st.
Correct. Okay. I'm gonna take it that.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I read in the recommendations, reading the agenda here. So I think we just considering staff report proposed that portion there back to June 1st. I think it's what the motion would be that the clerk would be up for. So I would move that.
Okay, seconder for that. Councillor Hutchison. Okay. And second and discussion on the motion. Go ahead, Doug.
Just a question. So given that the bylaw is not coming forward until June 1st, is there still, we're still open to public input up until that point? Is that correct? That people can comment. Some of our builders wanted to have a comment. They could do that up until June 1st. Is that correct? Or does that have to happen today?
Through Miracles, anyone is welcome to reach out to their councillor if they have comments or concerns about anything that the municipality is doing. However, I would suggest this is the public meeting. This would be the forum for that discussion to take place. Once the direction is given, the bylaw will be prepared. My intent is that this bylaw will likely be on the next council agenda or the agenda after that. As I said, with the effective date being June 1st. However, once the bylaw is passed, we would have to reconsider that and open it back up again if there were changes.
Great, so we do have the motion on the floor. Any other discussion on the motion about preparation? Councillor Shay, Jeff?
Just to Doug's point, reach to the building community or was just notice of this motion or of this meeting? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. No further questions on the motion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. I'll declare the public meeting process adjourned. And we will continue on with the rest of the agenda. Comment period. At this point in time, it's for the public to make any comment on. And do we have anybody online that wants to make a comment, Ashley? No? Very good. Then we'll move on to the adoption of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes from the regular council meeting on March 18th and the public meeting held on March the 18th. After that, do I have a mover and a seconder to accept those minutes as presented? Moved by Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Shay. Thank you, Scott. Jeff, any comments on those minutes? Errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Next, number 8 on our agenda, committee and board reports. We have 3 minutes of the West Grey Public Library, February 12th, Smart Board meeting, February 21st, and the highlights of the Grey County Council meeting from March 13th. We looking for somebody to move to receive those as information. Councillor Hutchison and I'll go with Councillor Shea again. Thank you. And comments, anything on those? Doug, Councillor Hutchison.
Yeah, under the West Grey Library Board, I just wondered if one of the board members could maybe bring us up to date. I don't see anything in the minutes about Service Ontario using our library now. They've moved from downtown location to the library. So I'm just curious how this is fitting into what we're doing there. And I believe I have asked the question to our CAO, so maybe she's aware of the situation and how things are going there with that new business in our library.
Technicality, it's, there is, you were correct. I don't think there's anything in the minutes about that. So I'm not certain that that's probably the spot that we can even introduce that if it's not enough. Yeah, if it's not there, we could discuss that.
Maybe other
Some
questions.
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
We'll go from it there. That sounds like a better spot. All right. So in receiving the minutes, have it moved and seconded. Any other questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. All right. Correspondence. Number 9 on the agenda. We've got one piece of correspondence there. 9.1.1 that requires direction from council. Any looking for comments on that? Jamie, what are you looking for? Motion to receive that and continue to move forward? I think would probably be the best explanation.
Through Mayor Eccles, if council is supportive of continuing on with exploring the possibility of joining in on a county hybrid planning service delivery model, Grey County is seeking council's support in principle for participating in that at this time and continuing with those investigations. So we would be looking for a motion to that effect.
Madam CEO.
Thank you. If I may, we were intending to bring a report forward to council on May 6th. The Director of Development Services / CBO and I were wanted to provide a little bit more insight into a West Grey perspective related to that. So if council is seeking more information from our perspective, there will be a report on May 6th unless you choose to make a motion today.
Okay. What is the feeling of council? Councillor Hutchison, go.
Well, I did have some questions, which I was going to ask at this time, but given that we have a report coming forward, I'm just not sure, should we support it in principle when we don't have all the information in front of us? Or like maybe we should be putting this off until next meeting, as long as we meet the May 9th deadline for our commitment. And maybe we should be putting this off until that time.
Thank you. If I may, to council, we did bring this forward many months ago and council didn't have any objections at that point. I know you were all party to the all county meeting for councils where you got the sort of high level. We're not going to bring anything forward related to that. I think they answered all of those questions, but there are some implications related to West Grey specifically that the director and I thought might be relevant for council to be aware of moving forward, including the fact that we do have retirement of one of our staff members in the planning department as of the end of this year. So there are some nuances specific to West Grey that I think it would be incumbent upon council to consider before making a recommendation one way or the other.
Okay. I think by that we could receive this for information and defer the decision until the forthcoming staff report. And as Madam CEO said, that would be able to meet the timelines that the county is expecting at this point in time. And I'm not sure in principle or supportive principle or something like that, we may have to, I'm still not certain on that. I may have to have a conversation with a mayor from another municipality on the interpretation of that. Okay. That's a bit of inside county council humor there on that part. Yeah, I know you got it. I know both of you got it. And thank you for being there for taking it. Dealing with that, Jamie, can we just have a motion to receive the correspondence? Receive that piece of correspondence, and then we'll deal with the rest of them. 9.2. Okay. What would be the best motion, best wording on that? Receive the county hybrid planning report.
It's Three Miracles. I think if we just did a motion to receive, I could wordsmith that later for the minutes specifically.
Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Forrester to receive the Grey County Council hybrid planning service delivery correspondence. And probably add decision forthcoming after. No, you don't even want that part. Okay, we'll leave that out. One of these days I'm going to get something. You did move it.
Not that part.
Okay, you moved as presented. And Councillor Forrester. Any other conversations? Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. 9.2 is the other correspondence that is there in the package. Need all the rest of them have been received or whatnot. These are just for information. Moved by Councillor Hutchison, received for information. And Councillor Shea. Thank you. Question on any of those? Clarification? Go ahead, Doug.
I didn't think this time was worth pulling, but I just had a question about the procurement process. There's a lot of discussion regarding procurement, and some of these mentioned about municipalities looking at shopping Canadian, I guess, put it that way. I'm just wondering, we've had this discussion. I think I thought the staff was going to maybe look at this. I'm just curious where we are with this, and is it something in the future we're going to look at maybe having something come forward that we can support or whatever. Maybe Madam CEO maybe wants to go.
Thank you. And I can defer to our Director of Finance for specifics, but at the end of the day, procurement, we are prohibited from, at this point, based on Canadian legislation, to specify that we have to buy local. I know the Ontario Chamber, the Canadian Chamber are lobbying the governments related to that. We are certainly monitoring that situation. We can certainly make and we don't deal with virtually or very little that is not Canadian, certainly in West Grey. It's virtually all Canadian, but we will monitor that. And if need be, we will update our procurement policy accordingly, if that's council's wish.
And just as a sidebar, Deputy Mayor and I were at Good Roads Sunday and yesterday. Councillor Townsend is still there as the conference goes on today and ends tomorrow. There was certainly a lot of discussion on that exact topic, where it's kind of an eye opener, how much it's extended, not just to Canadian, but maybe we should be buying more Ontario from some of the construction companies. Then it got down to the exact fact, well, you don't want to buy from somebody from the city. You should be buying from somebody in Grey County. I went, holy, yeah, there's a rabbit hole. I mean, how far down do you go? And yeah, the complexities that interact then with the legal aspect of it. I think it's slightly dangerous, but portion that needs to be addressed for sure. Something lots of Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think to further that, I think as things evolve around this tariff discussions and to see, because he's gonna probably end up softening a bit, but once it's landed wherever it lands, then I think there'll be a lot more work put into it, but nobody's really pushing the envelope right now because it's so uncertain. So, he lands at all this is at the end of it lands at 5%, then that's in my opinion, then that's, somebody want it from outside of our country or whatever, if they want to participate, then it would be a tariff related thing to participate in. That's how I see things unfolding. But he's just, we'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say anything more about the other tariffs because, but that's how I see things happening.
All right. With that, I think there is a motion to receive these. No other clarification questions. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. That brings us down to 10.1. What's the Director of Finance and Treasurer? Wants more money. Needs more money. Carried. 10.1.1 is infrastructure material borrowing. Something that we knew was coming up and got a better clarification on it. Carrie.
Yes, so we're just starting the process to initiate potential funding, long-term borrowing, construction borrowing, and long-term borrowing from Infrastructure Ontario. The temporary borrowing for construction the interest rate of the day will be what will be charged. And then once we get the project finished, then we would lock in at the final interest rate at that point. But this is just to start the process going. We need a bylaw and get the paperwork so we can start receiving some draws on the account.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments on the report? Director? Recommendation is there to lay that out. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by, thank you, Deputy Mayor Hutchison, and seconded by Councillor Shea. Motion is on the floor. Questions? This was certainly coming. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Okay. And the second one is on court security. Ms. Mighton, this is yours as well.
Yes, we've received the announcement on the court security and prisoner transportation agreement for this term. And the transfer payment agreement needs to authorize to be signed. We'll receive 10,666, which is just slightly up from what we received in 2024.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that, Tom? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. And I guess my question, is how big of a shortfall is this? What the services we actually provide? Does anybody know that number, or maybe it's not? It's just a question out of curiosity, if you will.
Yeah, I don't have that kind of information. The chief does need to report each year on the expenses for prisoner. Ours, we don't have the same level of court security costs that some municipalities have, but we do have the prisoner transportation is where ours is weighted more. But we do have to report on our expenses every year. But I do not have with me what the difference would be.
Thank you, Director. I didn't direct that to have you dig into that, but yeah, because we've had a wholesome conversation, I know at county regarding this, and I just want to make sure that it kind of lines up and what's fair for all, I guess is what I'm probably going to be researching a little more throughout this year. So thank you. Unless Mayor Eccles is the chair, you might know, but probably not, sir.
At the present moment, no, I can't make a comment as being the ex officio chair. You are correct, so, and I can make a comment on the court security costs, are substantially, and that, you know, Grey County obviously is the city of Owen Sound. Bruce County, who, West Grey Police Services Court is used mostly in the Walkerton Court. Brockton carries the load on that. That ends up in being 100,000, but ultimately it depends on how many people are arrested and need to be transported one way or the other. The OPP is under contract from back and forth to Penetang to the prison there. They're the ones that move most of it, but there will be on occasions where we have people in lockdown in West Grey that we would have to transport, and that's what this covers. It's not much, but every little drop in the bucket is beneficial. Any other comments on that? And we do have this moved and seconded, I believe. No, sorry. Recommendation is there, and basically this is receiving. This is what we're going to give. We just have to have a motion to receive it. Moved by Councillor Forrester, seconded by Councillor Shea. Thank you, Scott. Jeff? Any further questions or comments on the motion? Call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Does that bring us down to? That brings us down to questions, I believe, isn't it? Yep. Okay. And questions at this point? Yep. Have any questions? It has to be on the agenda, and if you can quote it, go ahead, Councillor Hutchison.
Well, I'm going to try again.
See if you've done your homework.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Given that my question relates to the library minutes, and given that we have a Service Ontario using our library, which we as a municipality supply the building, I would like to know how that fits into cost recovery for this business that's using our library, and what that looks like going forward. So that's where my question is coming from. If I can't ask it now, we can maybe find it through another channel.
I'll look towards Councillor Forrester, who does sit on the library. You remember this being discussed at a library meeting?
Maybe in the last minutes from the last meeting.
Good, yeah. All right, so the question's been asked. Thank you in the last meeting.
Yeah. What meeting minutes were those? Would the clerk or would the CAO have an answer?
Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank
This is
you.
the only
I
way
feel
we
like
can get
you're
to this.
tossing the hot potato over to me through the chair to council. In my last correspondence with this CEO of the library, my understanding is they have asked to continue their occupation of the space at the library. I think they're using the small computer room until the end of April, and they are receiving revenue. I believe they're charging them their daily rental rate for that facility. I'm not sure when their invoicing commenced, but I'm quite certain for March they were receiving revenue as they are in April.
Good.
Well, I just have a concern, and I'm not sure where we go with this, but I know from public input that it seems a little. I know we had discussion about the use of our library and the size of our library, but when people are restricted of using the library because there's a lineup for Service Ontario, maybe that's not a good thing. So I'm just curious if I'm thinking that maybe this isn't the proper space, but maybe that's something we'll have to discuss in the future.
Let's leave it at that. Good. Keep an eye on it and see where it is going. Okay, any other questions? Down to 12. Notice of motion. We had any, is there any notice of motions from any one of the members today? Announcements. Any announcements from anyone? Deputy Mayor. Tom?
Thank you, Mayor Eccles. Well, obviously, congratulations. I'm sure everyone's aware about the Durham Thundercats winning the Ontario Elite Hockey League Championship for their division. So I think that's pretty good news. Been quite a few years. Also, just wanted to say that we've had some from the hospital foundation. We've actually received some welcoming updates from the South Bruce Grey Health. So, just they did put $100,000 into enhancements of some needed equipment there. They are making a commitment, or they're asking for us to, as the committee there, to actually work towards a new X-ray suite, which would be a longer term project, but it's over $1 million retrofit, but that's bricks and mortar. So I think driving towards that, I think in essence, is sending a message that I think things may have stabilized to the current service level. So I think it's good news. It's not where we want to be. Obviously, it's still a long battle ahead of us, but I think it's wholesome, and it's kind of gives some reassurance, at least the current service for our community is going to still be there. So I just want to share that, and I think that's all. One other thing is that regarding the conservation, there's been some discussion, obviously, regarding some fees at the facilities for walking or just at the entry. So the conservation will be reaching out to Madam CEO or the staff here to get that correspondence. We're in a reactive situation. I apologize about that. I just kind of was brought to my attention. So we're going to try to get some concrete I would say positive language around that so that we can get that open. I'll be, as the chair of the SBCA, I will be working obviously with the SBCA and Madam CEO so that we can make the appropriate statement and get the communications out there ahead of time. Well, now it's too late, but sooner or later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any other announcements? Scott, Councillor Forrester.
Thank you. The Normanby Optimists are going to be having a murder mystery dinner Saturday, April 26th. Tickets are $40 and it's happening at the 8 in Normanby Arena Complex. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other ones? Just like to say last Friday night, I was in Newstead to the Grey Bruce Sheep and Lamb Association. Not sure just exactly, has their annual lamb dinner. It had been held at Elmwood for a number of years, and they've outgrown it. So they moved to the Newstead Hall. Just wanted to pass on to staff how pleased they were to be able to use the hall. It was extremely well received, and everybody that was there that for their first time being there were greatly impressed. And very good function. And also just as a heads up, this year, 2025, not sure August, and I apologize for not having the exact dates, near the end of August this year, the Canadian Plowing Championships will be held in Normanby Township. Carl Weber has been with the International Plowing Match a director for many years and has been able to get the Canadian plowing. And unlike the international plowing match, this is not a trade show type of thing. This is the actual plowing competition. Jay Lennox as well, who represented Canada a couple of years ago in Kenya at the World Plowing Championships, is working so we'll be hearing from him as well too, coming to give us a bit more of an update, but these are the Canadian Championships. There'll be individuals from at least 4 other provinces competing. The champions at the Canadian Plowing Championships will be heading to the Worlds, and I didn't ask Jay where the Worlds are in 2026, but this will be the qualifying for the World Plowing Championships. So pretty exciting news. It'll be probably, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Be tying up the facilities. Centennial Hall is going to be kind of the central point for the operations and the administration of this. The plowing will be out Gray Road 9 to a couple of the farms that have already committed to offering land for the competition itself. So this will be the Stanley Cup of Canadian plowing will be held right here in Normanby Township, right here in West Grey. So pretty excited about that happening. Further updates to come. Anything else? Very good. No closed session. We have, so nothing to report out of closed session, and we're down to bylaws. And I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, oh my gosh. Overloading me here. There's 9 bylaws on the agenda. A number of them doing with court secure. Well, 2 of them that we had put forward by the Director of Finance today, the confirming bylaw and zoning bylaw. Most of it planning aspects. Unless there's anyone that wants to be pulled, we can move one motion to receive them all. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Thank you. Bylaw 17.1 to 17.9. The approved and signed by the mayor and clerk. Any further questions on that? Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And I believe that is all. I don't believe there's any other business. Mr. Clerk. Then, with all business done on the agenda, I'll declare the meeting adjourned. And we'll see you back here.